Hey, congratulations! If you are on this page, you're a first-time buyer who is currently renting, who wants to know how to speed up the legal process of buying a new home. Now, my name's Paul Lawton and I totally get this. Around 10 years ago, I split with my girlfriend and I ended up renting a studio apartment. I hated it. But what was worse was all my friends owned their own place and I didn't. I was embarrassed. I wanted a place I could invite friends and family around that I could call my own. Now, this is something you can probably relate to, and what I want to do really quickly is share with you how you can rapidly go from renting to owning your own home. So who am I? I've worked for a leading estate agent for over 9 years. I've agreed and chased over 600 sales from start to completion, and I've helped hundreds of first-time buyers just like you overcome delays and problems throughout the sales process so they could own their own home as soon as possible. So here's what we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering the rapid rabbit technique. Actually, I should say rapid deadline method, but hey ho. The chosen one technique, and it's all about you success hack. The first one is what's going to set us up for success. It's such a crucial point. It's why you opted in. That's the core of this whole process. The chosen one. A little hint, that's to do with the solicitor, huge part of it, and the most important crucial step of all this process, believe it or not, is all about you. Anyway, we'll jump on and discuss more about that later, but I just want to let you know up front what we're going to be covering. Now, before we actually jump in to the rapid deadline method, this is really important. So what I want you to do is grab a pen and piece of paper, pause the video if you need to, and it's important that you get what I'm about to go through with you. So, when should you serve your landlord notice? Once you've exchanged contracts. When you exchange contracts, both parties are legally committed to the sale. It happens when all legal formalities have been completed and when both parties have agreed a completion date. If you serve your landlord notice prior to exchanging contracts, there is no guarantee that you will complete prior to when your rent notice date expires. So what's this mean? It means that you could be left homeless, and a solicitor will advise you to do exactly the same. Is it possible to serve notice and not exchange prior? Yes, but it's not advisable. The rapid deadline method. This is how to use your rent due date to speed up your conveyancing process. Okay, so we're going to actually break it down into the different parts. Okay, so stick with me here, I don't want to lose you. So first of all, you need to identify the date to serve your landlord notice. Okay, so this is how we do it. Step one, what is your rent due date? So forget the month, what date each month is that date? Okay, so write that down. Now the day before that date becomes your landlord notice date. So write that down. Okay, now you've got to work out which month. Okay, now this will vary due to whether you are buying a house that is offered with no chain or with a chain. If you're planning on purchasing a house with a chain, you will have to take into account the length of it to decide which month you would want to serve your landlord notice. The longer the chain, the longer, in most cases, the conveyancing process will be. Conveyancing is another word for legal process. Okay. If you are buying a house that is offered with no chain, the absolute minimum time frame you should be looking at is 5.5 to 6 weeks from 2 days from now. Okay? Mark 2 days from now as your start date. The 2 days are to allow for negotiations to take place. So 2 days from start, and then look at where your landlord notice date is. Alright? Is there enough time if you're in no chain? It'll be 5.5 weeks at least. Okay, so next you need to identify the date to exchange contracts. Your target exchange date is ideally the Friday before your rent notice date. It should be no less than 5 weeks from the start date, and this is if you're buying a house offered with no chain. Now, if you're planning on purchasing a house that is offered with a chain, you don't have to use a Friday as your target exchange date if you need the extra days to reach at least the 5 week time period. Okay. If you are buying with a chain, I recommend you stick to targeting the Friday before your rent notice date. Why is this? is because there's more people involved and it's just going to be a lot easier for you. Okay. Identify the date to complete, moving date. Now this one's easy. Assuming you have to serve your landlord a month's notice, add 4 weeks to your target exchange date and you will identify your targeted completion date. Okay, get the seller to agree to your dates. Now, you have your dates, it's time to get the seller to agree to them. And if you're buying with no chain, this is really easy. All you've got to do is submit your offer, subject to your seller agreeing to your targeted exchange and completion dates. Now, assuming you've made an acceptable offer, the seller's not going to have a problem agreeing to your suggested dates. How can I be so sure? The seller will want the monies for his property as soon as possible, and nobody in their right mind would relish the prospect of the conveyancing process. Trust me on this. The seller, like you, will want it over quickly, and because the property is being offered with no chain, there isn't any reason for the seller to offer any kind of resistance to agreeing to your targeted exchange date. Alright? Now, the seller won't want to miss the target exchange date because he won't want to have to wait another month for you to serve your landlord notice. So he wants all this over as soon as possible. There's no vendor resistance, and this is why it's just going to work like gangbusters for you, especially if you've got no chain. Now, if you are planning on offering on a house whereby the sellers still have to find, or if they have found and there is a chain, I recommend that you go through these steps and you arrange a second viewing where they are present. Okay, you're going to talk to them directly, miss out the agent, and ask them if you were to make an acceptable offer, would they be happy to work towards your target exchange date. Now, once you've explained why you need to exchange before serving your landlord notice, you'll most likely find that they are receptive and you will come to an agreement. Now, the reason for the last step is that a seller's resistance will be higher if they're in a chain because no one likes to be pressured. What are we really doing here? We have created an exchange date deadline, and by doing so we have shortened the length of time it would normally take to reach exchange of contracts. Therefore, if we hit our target exchange deadline, the conveyancing process will be faster. So how does this strategy actually speed up the conveyancing process? Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had to work to a deadline? The chances are that you have. And what happened when you had a deadline to meet? You worked faster and you did all you needed to do to hit the deadline, right? This is no different. Both parties have agreed to meet a targeted exchange deadline. Right, let's recap, because it's important you get this before we move on. You now know what your target exchange deadline date is, as well as the exact date you are targeting to serve your landlord notice, and the exact date you are targeting to move in. You also understand why and how this strategy sets up your conveyancing process to be a fast one. So what do you need to do to make sure you hit your targeted deadline date? Hire the right solicitor for you. Choosing a solicitor is not something you should do on a whim. Choosing not only a good solicitor but the right solicitor is crucial if you're serious about hitting your targeted exchange date or deadline date. People will usually hire someone based off personal recommendation, price, or worse still, fall for the estate agent's spiel about their own and use them. Whatever you do, don't do any of these. There is a right solicitor for you to use, you just don't know it yet. So how do you find the right solicitor? Once you've had your offer accepted, the selling agent is highly likely going to try and convince you to use their solicitors. So this is what you do. You politely decline by telling him you want to use a local solicitor, and acknowledge that he can't recommend another firm than other than the one his agency uses, but can he name 2 good local solicitors that he has had experience of getting sales through quickly with, and that he has a good working relationship with? He's obviously then going to give you 2 names. Yeah. So why are either of these going to be the right one? What makes either of them potentially the right one is that he has a good working relationship with them. This is huge. Agents can help solicitors speed up the conveyancing process, but only if they allow them to be willing to communicate well with them. So how do you make the final decision? Well, first and foremost, ask the guy which one he would prefer to work, which one he's happy working with, if there's any particular reason he choose one over the other. And the next step, the second step, is to actually then go and look online at reviews and then make an informed decision. This then leads us on to the final of the 3 things I promised you. So, the It's All About You success hack. Succeed or fail, it's down to you. Right, time for some tough love and a reality check. If you follow through on what you've learned so far, the only reason you will fail to hit your targeted exchange deadline date is you. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. It's not your fault, because this is the first time you have done this. But if you don't act on what I'm about to share with you, then you know where the blame lies. Let me explain. It's all about precision. In order for you to hit your targeted exchange deadline date, you, the seller, both sets of solicitors, the agent, the agent's admin team, your mortgage broker, the lender, the surveyor, the land registry team, and possibly a builder and contractor, all need to do what is required of them at the right time and to take the right amount of time to do it. It only takes one of them to not do what they should be doing when they should be doing it, and delays can and will happen. For example, if you were to apply for searches where most mortgage brokers would advise you to do so, you would be looking at 3 weeks delay. Now, I'm not scaremongering here, it's just important that you realise how many different parties are involved in your conveyancing process, so you can fully appreciate that there has to be someone who takes control to make sure that everyone does what they need to do when they need to do it, so you can hit your targeted exchange deadline. And that person is you. So how do you take control? Well, you can't control what you don't know, so you're going to have to take time to research and learn. The conveyancing process. How long different parts of the conveyancing process take. Who needs to do what, when they need to do it, how to adapt all this to work within your target exchange deadline. Now stick with me here. If you don't fancy that or have the time, I have some good news for you. More on that shortly. What you need to do is become the puppeteer. Once you reach this stage, you won't fear the process because it will no longer be the unknown. You will feel confident and in control. You'll have a plan, and all you have to do is execute it. You will be the one who is pulling the strings to make sure you stay on track throughout the whole process. You'll do this by chasing both your solicitor and your agent. Now, because you understand the conveyancing process and how long each part of the process should be taking, you'll be perfectly equipped to know if something isn't happening as fast as it should be. You are then in a position to be able to communicate this and get either or both the agent and the solicitor to do whatever needs to be done to correct the problem. So all you need now is, it's about chasing. There is a right way to chase both estate agents and solicitors, and that is to email them first. And this is for 4 reasons. Number 1, you are more likely to reach the person you need to than calling, and people tend to respond quicker to emails than messages left with a colleague if you try to call. Number 2, you have something in writing which is helpful because you can sometimes use contents as leverage if needed later. 3, estate agents and solicitors are extremely busy people. They don't want you calling them all of the time. The less you call them, the less likely you'll be ignored. 4, if you email them first and you don't get a timely response, when you call, they are more likely to speak to you. Also, by doing this, you are training them to quickly reply to your email because they won't want you to call them. And this is nothing personal. Something extra? Seriously, that's it. Follow everything we just covered and you will get results. I've no doubt that you will definitely speed up your conveyancing process if you take on board what you've learned today and you follow through on it. Okay, I've chased, like as you heard at the top of the call, over 600 sales. I know what I'm doing and I've put my heart and soul into this. It will work for you. Now, you can make this easy on yourself. If this is of interest to you, I suggest you click on the link below, and what you'll see there is a blueprint that you can use that focuses on, the third thing, which is it's all about you. If you want to fast track your way to learning conveyancing process and chasing and making it all easy on yourself, pulling everything together, then that may be of interest to you. I hope you've enjoyed the Get Savvy guide, and I'll speak to you soon.